More on that budget now. Duma Gqubule is the Economist and Founding Director of the Center for Economic Development and Transformation, joining us via Skype. Duma, thank you so much for the time. My colleague Francis Hurd was chatting to Tabilioka, and it was clear. The message here is the devil is in the details. There's no devil because there clearly was no details in that budget either.
Arabid, I just want to first talk about what happened yesterday. Yesterday, we saw the figures for unemployment. So what the situation is that the unemployment rate for Black Africans is 44%. The unemployment rate for Black African females is 48%. The unemployment rate in the Eastern Cape, where half my family stays, is 49%. So because of this COVID devastation, unemployment is heading in the short term towards 50% in most provinces and 50% nationally. Now, once we get to 50% national unemployment, the whole society becomes unviable. So I would argue that what we should be talking about as a country is that when our society becomes unviable, we have no option but to have a humanitarian response. And I think that the analogy is when there's an earthquake, I know that you have to rebuild your infrastructure, but the first thing that you have to do is to do the humanitarian response for the people who are affected by that earthquake. You must give them food. You must give them income. You must give them shelter. So I think that is what we should be focusing on, because we're going to see the devastation. The unemployment figures that you saw are for the crisis before the crisis. They do not reflect the devastation that you're going to see with the COVID-19.
So what do you suggest then, Duma, at a time like this? What do you suggest with regards to, you've painted the picture. It's difficult.
The first thing I would do is that we need to start implementing a basic income grant, because our society is frayed. It's the urgency of having a basic. We do not have a choice but to find a way to do this basic income grant. So now the headline numbers look quite big, Arabile, but people should look at the net cost of this basic income grant in the sense that it creates the income to pay for some of its initial costs, a big portion of its cost. And there are various ways in which you can claw back some of the initial costs of this basic income. And then secondly, once you've done that and you've stabilized the situation, then you can talk about things about building the economy for the future. So under normal circumstances, I would put infrastructure first, but because of the scale of the devastation that we're going to see over the next 12 to 18 months, I would not start with infrastructure. And the last thing I want to say, Arabile, is that it's a bit rich coming from government to suddenly discover that infrastructure is how to grow the economy, because the major reason for the slowdown in the economy for the 5 years between 2015 and 2020, per capita GDP has been declining, has been the collapse of public sector investment. There's been a public sector investment strike, and that is the main reason for the economy collapsing of the past 5 years. And obviously there were other factors contributing, but that was a major factor contributing towards the situation.
Now we need to pick it up off the floor, though. We have to pick up the country off the floor. It seems that we're trying to build on shaky ground. And as you said, that public sector infrastructure segment hasn't been working. But we continue to try and plow ahead with plans that aren't helping us or aren't moving us forward in any particular direction. What is it that we're lacking, do you feel? What is it? Why do we keep on pushing and just kicking the can down the road so much further?
Okay, let's talk about the infrastructure. Now, it's mostly the state-owned companies that are not investing. So let's fix that balance sheet of Eskom. They've been kicking the can down the road on that one for 2 years, for 3 years. They've been sustainability. There's so many task teams. Now there's another task team. It's actually quite simple, and there's many ways that have been suggested how to solve that situation. So let's repair those state-owned companies so they can start investing in the economy again. But you can't. We've had how many summits? We've had 2 investment summits. After each summit, investment comes down. And now we had a summit a couple of days ago on Wednesday. And you can't, as the private sector, invest when the economy is tanking by 7%.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, unfortunately. And it doesn't seem like the supplementary budget helped us in any particular way. Duma, unfortunately, we have run out of time, but always good chatting to you. Thank you so much for your time this evening as well here as we unpack that supplementary budget then having been delivered by Finance Minister Tito Mboweni. Did it answer any questions for you? Perhaps it did, perhaps it didn't. Certainly we'll find out whether it's aided South Africa in any particular way. It isn't a good picture. It's a very scary one. Growth down 7.2% at the very least for this year. That's what national